Yo, step into the shadows, let me tell you a tale about a web of deception where the truth starts to pale. In the heart of the night, where the whispers take flight, they'll sell you a dream, but it's all out of sight. Got a leader with charm, yeah, they're stuck with the words, spinning tales so grand, like they're flying with birds. Promises of power, they'll make you believe, but behind all that glitter, it's a trick up their sleeve. Lies, lies, they're feeding you dreams, wrapped in a bow, but it's bursting at the seams. Watch your back, don't get caught in the spin, cause the cult's a trap, and the danger's within.
The Unraveling, a descent into the anointing, Annie's story. Welcome to a poignant journey that delves into the complexities of love, worry, and the shadows that can infiltrate even the most sacred spaces. This narrative is part of a series of blogs brought to life in audiovisual form, crafted by the talented Mr. Dior 7. To explore more of his insightful perspectives, follow him on X at Mr. Dior 7 News. All music is composed and copyrighted by Mr. Dior 7. Reproduction of any of Mr. Dior 7's works requires prior permission. For business inquiries or to share your stories, feel free to reach out at tellmoredior@yahoo.com. Join us as we unravel the layers of Annie's experience. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more captivating content. As Sunday evening approached, a sense of steadiness settled over the house. I had finally coaxed Annie into a much-deserved nap, and she had drifted off for most of the afternoon. As I began to savor the stillness, my youngest daughter wandered over, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "What do we have to eat around here?" she asked, her tone comedic, as only a child her age could muster. I bent down to meet her gaze. "How about a big steak with a hot potato slathered in melted butter?" I suggested, relishing the thought of firing up my prized green egg, a grill revered among serious barbecue enthusiasts. "Yuck! How about mac and cheese, the kind Mommy makes for me?" she exclaimed, scrunching her face in playful disgust. My wife had a knack for crafting the perfect mac and cheese, spiral pasta coated in a velvety sauce of white cheddar and Gouda, rich and comforting like a Welsh rabbit sauce. I had to admit, it was pretty good. "Chloe, Mommy is tired. How about some box mac? I can make steak and potatoes for Sissy and me. We can have a smorgasbord. How does that sound?" I tweaked her button nose, eliciting a giggle from her. "What's a smorgasbord?" she asked, her brow furrowing in confusion. I chuckled, explaining it as if it were a magical place. "It's like Golden Corral, where you can pick and choose all kinds of foods." She pondered this for a moment, then brightened. "Well, okay, as long as we have chocolate pudding." "I think I can handle that," I replied, smiling at her enthusiasm. But then a memory flickered in my mind, what Solace had told me earlier about the pantry. Curiosity piqued, I swung the door open, only to be met with an unexpected sight. Around 15 bottles of olive oil lined the shelves, each one gleaming in the dim light. What in the world, I thought, feeling a chill creep up my spine. This was indeed strange. The sheer amount of olive oil could last us for years. As I stared at the bottles, an unsettling thought nagged at me. The atmosphere in the kitchen shifted, a tension wrapping itself around me like a shroud. I needed to have a serious discussion with Annie. The changes in her behavior were unsettling, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. She had never struggled with serious mental illness, just a touch of light depression when we first married. Yet, the shadows that had begun to creep into her demeanor now felt heavier, more ominous. Annie had endured her share of trauma. Verbal and physical abuse from her brother had left scars that ran deeper than skin. A neighbor had crossed lines that should never be crossed, touching her inappropriately during her childhood. But none of this had ever rendered her incapable of functioning. It was as if my affection for her had unearthed buried emotions she didn't fully understand, causing a melancholy that lingered beneath the surface. She was ecstatic about our new life together, yet simultaneously felt unworthy of the happiness we were building. It was a war waging within her, a struggle she fought in silence. At one point, she attended daily therapy to confront feelings she had long hidden away, shadows from her past clawing at her present. I had stood by her side, supportive, though I had no real comprehension of the strength it took for her to pull herself off the antidepressants and out of the cycle of therapy. That battle was hers alone, but it had drawn us closer, leaving me in awe of her resilience. Annie had learned to forgive those who had wronged her. She once told me that the day she finally let go of the anger was transformative, as if a literal weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She compared it to shaking off an illness. The fever broke, and suddenly she no longer felt sick. But now, as I prepared to confront her about the unsettling changes, I couldn't help but wonder if those past traumas were resurfacing, manifesting in ways we couldn't yet comprehend. Was the darkness creeping back into her life? I needed to know what she was feeling, to understand the turmoil beneath her surface before it consumed her, us, our family, whole. A supernatural tension hinted at revelations yet to come. As I struggled to find the right moment to discuss Annie's erratic behavior, she suddenly emerged from the dim hallway, freshly awakened from her nap. Her presence only heightened the already charged atmosphere in the dining room. Meanwhile, our daughters flitted about, engrossed in their evening preparations, their laughter weaving through the tension in the air. I took a deep breath, bracing myself to approach the conversation with a calm demeanor. "Are you hungry?" I asked, hoping to stave off any potential conflict born from hunger-fueled irritation. She nodded and picked at a small piece of steak alongside a mound of mac and cheese. "I'm impressed with your mac and cheese," she remarked, a hint of surprise in her voice. "Thanks," I replied, forcing a smile. "It's just the boxed kind, with some melted cheddar mixed in." Not bad at all," she said, her face wrinkling in a playful grimace that almost made me forget the weight of our unspoken issues. Just as I began to relax, she shifted the conversation toward the events of that morning. "I need to apologize for how I've been acting," Annie said, her gaze steady, yet vulnerable. My heart quickened as I met her eyes, filled with a mix of concern and understanding. "I've been really tired," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm scared right now, scared of everything that's happening in the world. But we can stop it." Confusion washed over me, and I furrowed my brow, urging her to elaborate. "What do you mean?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. "Well," she hesitated, gathering her thoughts as if they were fragile pieces of glass. "Have you ever heard of the Illuminati, the Mothers of Darkness, the New World Order, or satanic ritual abuse?" I shrugged, an uncertain gesture that betrayed my bewilderment. Somewhat, but babe, what does any of that have to do with the 15 bottles of olive oil? And why have you been scribbling Bible verses in a notebook all night? While we're at it, why were you seen talking to the sky while driving sticks into the ground at McDonald's? The air thickened with unspoken fears and unanswered questions, the weight of her words hanging heavily between us like a storm cloud ready to burst. "I've been following a pastor who was raised in a high-ranking Illuminati family," Annie declared, her eyes blazing with fervor. "She was—" I interrupted, skepticism creeping into my voice. "She?" Annie pressed on, undeterred. "Yes, she was destined to take over as the head of the Mothers of Darkness." The term made my mind race, scrambling through the fog of memories. Where had I heard that phrase before? A classic piece of literature, perhaps? But before I could dig deeper, Annie plunged ahead with her fanatical narrative. The mothers are under Satan's command, receiving direct instructions on how to prepare for the Antichrist's arrival. Jessica was... Is this the same Jessica whose book you've read 1,000,000 times? The one you listen to every Friday while furiously jotting down notes? I interjected, my incredulity mounting. Yes, stop interrupting me. I knew you wouldn't understand, she shot back, frustration boiling over. No one believes her, and it doesn't surprise me that you don't either. Her words spiraled into a torrent of accusations, each more bewildering than the last. She unleashed a barrage of insults regarding my conservative Christian beliefs, claiming I'd been deceived. She spoke of ancient texts removed and altered by the Freemasons, human meat in hamburgers, diamonds made from children's remains, and decoding images on magazine covers, her voice rising in intensity as she painted a dark picture of world domination. It was overwhelming, a cacophony of conspiracy that made my head spin. When someone hurls insults, it's easy to retreat into silence, and I found myself struggling to process the chaos swirling around us. "Can you just slow down?" I asked, trying to calm her tempestuous energy. "What does Jessica's story have to do with the 15 bottles of olive oil in the pantry and your strange behavior at McDonald's?" With a huff, she snatched my iPhone, her fingers dancing over the screen until she pulled up a video featuring a woman named Janet, who later would turn out to be Jessica. "Listen to this," she commanded, "and ask me later." As the video began to play, I felt the weight of her words pressing down on me, the strange world she was describing threatening to engulf us both. Janet's voice dripped with intensity as she recounted the tragic events of her childhood, a tale steeped in calamity and darkness. Her family had been shattered, left homeless in the wake of a disaster that forced them to seek refuge with her maternal grandmother. As she wove her tale, Janet described a flight she took with her grandmother, but it was no ordinary journey. They boarded a plane that transcended the mundane, soaring through a shimmering portal that whisked them to a distant continent. The imagery was vivid, almost too vivid. Janet painted a scene of a grand castle where an uncrowning ceremony took place, the air thick with tension as her grandmother was declared the new queen. The glory of the moment was juxtaposed with grotesque acts. Beheadings and cannibalism danced through her words, each detail more horrific than the last. I couldn't help but think this was an elaborate work of fiction, a pitch for her latest sci-fi thriller. But as I glanced at Annie, I saw her enraptured, hanging on every word. Janet spoke with an eerie calm, her tone deceptively soothing, as if she were weaving a spell that held her audience captive. It was clear she intended to shock us. She seemed to revel in the dark beauty of her tale, a macabre happiness shining through the veil of doom and gloom cloaking her story. Yet as I listened, a gnawing doubt settled in my gut. Something was undeniably off about her story, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing at the precipice of something dark and unfathomable.